Every smile hides a secret, and some of them are deadly. Welcome to Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski, featuring retired FBI Special Agent and Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, Robin Dreeke.
Let's take one more look at the closing arguments, talking about the timeline and his own testimony, just really sinking his case. Let's watch this.
But he had no issue with anything in that timeline at first. And another thing, when the defendant testified, a lot of times he didn't use phraseology like, I didn't do this, or I didn't do that, or I didn't stab him, or I didn't go to that scene. It was never that. I mean, maybe from times he would say it, you'll check your notes, but the vast majority of the time, Mr. Tellez would say it like this. I'd like to think I wouldn't do something like this. I'd like to think that I wouldn't do that. I'd like to think I wouldn't take my children's sports balls out of the bag to use for a killing. It's an interesting phraseology. The state would submit it's a bit of a tell. Because he could have just simply said, I didn't do that. I didn't touch that bag. But that's not how he words his behavior. It's this like Monday morning quarterback. I'd like to think I wouldn't, because it's really bad. You can weigh that when you're evaluating how honest and truthful he was when testifying. And again, for all his talk about being conspired against by powerful enemies, it's actually the defendant that uses the power of his office's proprietary software to spy on and discover where Gehrman lives and what type of car he drove. He used the power of the office, Mr. Tellez. And here's another thing. Remember the map that they brought up, kind of trying to show the drive from the PA's office to Popeye's? When you study that, remember it's Analyst Hovanet's testimony. Those reports out of Axiom from the work computer aren't converted for UTC time. So he was trying to use it to say, like, I couldn't have done this at this certain time. It's not UTC converted. And then we get to where are you? Remember, every single message between the defendant and his wife on 9/22 are on the timeline, with the exception of where are you?
Pretty cut and dry.
That prosecutor is so good. He's such a good behaviorist.
Yeah.
He really is. The phrase, he's so right. The phraseology that Tellez used to distance themselves from those events, that's not something I would do. That, I wouldn't have done that. He never once, I mean, like the prosecutor said, maybe once or twice, but he used distancing words. He used a lot of conjecture. Mm-hmm. He used a lot of word modifiers, I call them. And he also, besides the distancing, I mean, he put hypotheses out there of what he would or wouldn't do. I mean, it was just everything you shouldn't do. Yeah. But the funny thing is watching him make a comment to his defense attorney as if, he's full of bunk. What? You're an idiot. Yeah. You're such an idiot.
When you think you can outsmart the room no matter what. And that's what he truly thinks he's doing. Super glue was a part of this case where he talked about super gluing his finger back together. I'm almost wondering if it's like his hand, his arm is like super glued to his chin, because every time you see him, he's got his fist balled up and it's like attached to his, even when he moves around, it's like still there. Very odd, but also it's a defense type thing, I'm sure, as well. Hands up, kind of covering. I mean, that in itself right there was a big tell for me as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of blocking. It's still just watching his nonverbal, just watching him. It's hard to imagine that he so firmly believes in his own narrative. But he really does. Yeah, and it's really kind of weird. I mean, he's got this disconnect from reality. It looks like, because I mean, so if you didn't know what was being said and just look at him, it looks as if he was just told, "Hey, you're going to jail for the rest of your life," and that's his reaction for going to jail for the rest of his life, or not the reaction of someone who doesn't believe what's being said. He literally he doesn't believe what's being said about him.
No,
as if he was. It's weird.
It reminds me of Lori Vallow quite a bit.
It really does, but he's more higher functioning than Lori Vallow was.
Yeah.
That's why I mean, it's really weird. Vallow, she's a nut job, my technical term.
Sure.
Because, she is 100% totally believes all the garbage spewing out of her and Chad's mouth about even talking to her kids in the afterlife. And they said they're all doing fine and great. Yeah, he totally believes that. She's a nut. This guy, I don't think he's nuts. I think that's why it's really weird, because he's much more higher functioning. He had a job. Lori never had a job. Her job was to kill people and get their insurances. I'm
going to go with sociopath. I think that
high functioning.
Yeah, very high functioning sociopath. It seems to be the only way to explain it, because he seems to go beyond just narcissist and everything else. This is someone who believes his own insanity. And just
I'd be really curious about him on a poly as well. It would be really interesting to see if he.
I think he'd pass.
From the look of him. I would think it would. I don't know if he'd pass it, but might come back inconclusive.
Yeah.
Just because boy, he fell in love with his own narrative. He really did.
Oh yeah, completely.
But as you can see from his effect, though, he's got zero empathy. So he's definitely edging up on psychopathy. At least my non-clinical licensed way of saying it, because he has no emotional connection to anyone or anything but himself.
The technical term that we should remember for the future, Fruit Loop, is the one.
Oh yeah, broken brain Fruit Loop.
Yes.
Sick of the ads? Yep, we are too. Then you need to become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts. Heck, even try it for 3 days free right now. As a Premium Plus subscriber, you'll get exclusive access to uncut interviews before everyone else. Plus, no more commercials. So, if you have an iPhone, just search True Crime Today Premium Plus and press subscribe now.